some things that we can do to build intimacy, all right? One of them is just how we talk to each other. Tender speech. Tender speech. You know, a harsh word stirs up anger. A soft answer turns away wrath. I mean, there's so much in the book of Proverbs on how we talk to each other. Paul even says that our speech should be a vessel of grace, that it may impart grace to those who listen. And I would love to tell you I've known that for a long time. That just hit me about a year ago. I was reading in Ephesians 4, and I read that, and I thought, oh my gosh, my speech can actually be a vessel of God's grace to someone else. Just be careful. Be careful how you talk to each other, the things you say. Time alone together, choosing to be together is a way to build intimacy. And I'm not talking romance and sex and all that stuff right here. That's fine, but I'm just talking about the fact that the person that you're married to knows that you want to be with them. Time alone. Listening. You know how you listen? You listen by talking, and you say, that doesn't make sense. No, as long as there's a question mark at the end of your statement. Developing the art of curiosity. That's what listening is. Listening is asking questions. You know, I mean, some of us would be startled if our spouse asked us how we slept. Particularly if you're processing a bunch of junk in the middle of the night, trying to sleep and you can't, and you get up. Just asking questions. And I don't mean prodding and no, again, look up here. This is pretty much predicated on the fact that both people want to do this. You know, if one of you decides that you want nothing to do with this, then this isn't going to work, because asking questions then is being nosy and being pushy. You know, but talking to each other. And I'm going to tell you, I don't have a lot of patience when I talk to particularly men that say, you know, I talk to people all day long. When I come home, I just don't want to talk. Well, you need to figure out a way between the time, 3 o'clock on your clock till the time you get home, you need to figure out a way to fix that. You can. I don't know what it is, but it's fixable. It may mean pulling off the side of the road and praying for 5 minutes and just saying, Lord, I am absolutely out of gas, but I really need to be available to my wife, to my children. Give me strength. Put something on your dash besides a GPS that reminds you, a different kind of GPS, reminds you where you are in life rather than just where you are on the highway. I've got, true confessions here. I got stickies all over the place. I mean, I've got things in Greek on my mirror. So if you come to visit my house and you go to the bathroom, you'll have no idea what is up there, but I know exactly what it's saying, and it's saying something to me, all right? I've got a quote from the Talmud up there, just to remind me of stuff. Romance, just preserving some space for love to grow. Creating some space in your day, in your week, getting out of the house, getting out of town, getting out of the neighborhood, going for a walk in the park, going to Oak Mountain. Wait till fall, it's too hot. Just creating some space. To be affectionate. Hold hands. When you're going from the car to the supermarket together or into the restaurant, just reach over and take a hand. All right? And you sit across from each other, right? When you go out to eat. Eating out is not a spectator sport. It's not like going to the theater or an Auburn game. You don't sit side by side. I get a kick out of these couples that go out to eat. They sit side by side, and they're smushed together like an Oreo, and they feel like this is really intimate. They can't see each other. You know? Now, and I'm not joking, because you can look for it because it's there, and by the time I'm dead, it will be everywhere. All right. But couples are sitting side by side now so they can share what's on their phones with each other. Okay. And if you want to take an iPad out on a date, then don't take a person with you. Just take your iPad. I would. Okay. A lot cheaper. They don't eat. Okay. Confession. Confessing our sins to one another. The admission of accountability. The admission of accountability. Two ways that goes. And some of you don't do this, some of you already know this, but don't teach your kids to say they're sorry to each other. Just don't do that. It's a waste of oxygen. Tell your kids, train your kids to ask each other if they would forgive them. What did I say? What did I tell you to say to them? Sorry. Okay. Obviously, everything is better. Okay. No, teach them to take accountability. Would you forgive me? That's accountability. I did something. Would you forgive me? It's accountability on the other part to say yes or no. And also for yourselves, not just your kids, but for yourselves, give your spouse a chance to say, I need some space. I need some time to do that. Extroverts like me, I'm an extroverted feeler, I ask for forgiveness. Let's bring it. Come on, let's bring it. Bring the forgiveness. And Jill's an internal processor. She can go to bed at night and wake up mad at me in the morning. I have no idea how it happened. Some kind of internal processing went on, and I came out on the short end of the stick, And for a long time, I just didn't believe it. But now it's true. Jill has got to, she is so private and so introverted, she's got to have time to just process stuff, she'll lay awake at night thinking about a movie that we watched. And I'll just, but confession. Would you forgive me? Would you forgive me? There's a thing that counselors call a negativity threshold. I'm not a counselor, but it's a really interesting concept. The negativity threshold in the world of counseling is at what level do you confront someone about what they've said or done to you? How much do you bear before you pull the curtain back and say, we need to talk about that. That really hurt me. That really offended me. All right? And I think in Christian circles, we've been trained from Matthew 5 that if someone strikes you on the right cheek, you turn to him the other also. All right? Which is absolutely true if it's a stranger. It's absolutely untrue if it's a spouse. All right? And what they found, this is so interesting, what they found is that marriages that were the healthiest and lasted the longest had the lowest negativity threshold rather than a big one. In other words, and that doesn't mean that everything bothered them. It just means that, we dealt with things quickly before we just start putting all these grievances in the bank and then brought out the big gun at one point. And I thought this is just an interesting thing to share. And I think that sounds really revolutionary, but it's right in the scripture. Jesus said if you're having your quiet time and you there remember that your brother has something against you, leave your gift there before the altar. First go be reconciled to your brother, all right? And if you know you've offended someone, go to them. And I think this is kind of crazy, but I think in God's economy, theoretically, two people should meet halfway. The offended party and the offender are both responding to God, and they kind of meet in the middle. But the idea of confession, I think this is, if you're not in the habit of doing this, please start. Jill and I, over the years, have done a thing called the examen. It's a really ancient ritual that St. Ignatius Loyola started. He's the guy that started the Jesuits. And the examen is 5 questions. The first one is, where did you sense God's presence in your life today? Where did you sense God's absence in your life today? What are you thankful for? Do you have any sin to confess? And what can I pray for you for tomorrow? And for a long season, we did that every night. We lit a candle, just set it on the counter there by the couch, and we'd go through that. Sometimes it was 10 minutes, sometimes it was 45 minutes. Then we quit doing it for a while, and then we started doing it again. Have a digital candle now, so it's more modern. One foot in the ancient, one foot in the new, that's where we're trying to keep it that way. Another thing that builds intimacy is praying together. praying together, waging war together for each other, praying for each other together, not just I'll pray for you. We're awful at this at Christians. We ask people to pray for us all the time. We meet them in the supermarket and they tell us, and we just don't. Maybe I shouldn't say we. I don't. Maybe you do. So I started praying with people in public. They said, would you pray? I said, let's do it right here, right now. All right? Prayed for a guy outside on the sidewalk outside Trader Joe's last week. Former student I ran into that's going through a divorce. 4 kids, neat guy. We prayed together But praying together as a couple. I did a survey when I taught at the large Christian school south of here for 11 years. I surveyed my kids and asked them, how many of you had a parent pray with you before bed at night? And it was hardly anybody. And I asked them, how many of you saw your parents praying together? Hardly anybody. If you want to teach your children how to pray, let them see you praying. Let them see you praying. But pray together. Find a time to pray. There's a great verse, and I think it's Psalm 92. It is right to praise the Lord, to make music to your name, O Most High, to proclaim your love in the morning and your faithfulness at night. I think those are, two really good things. Mission, having a legacy that would outlive our marriage. All right, and listen to me. I mean a legacy besides your kids. Your kids are part of your legacy. Those of you that are younger don't know this yet. Those of us that are older know this. Beloved, there comes a point when you got to put the pen down and you quit writing in your kid's story. You just got to let them pick the pen up and finish the story. Parent is a verb and a noun. All right? I will always be the noun, but I got to quit being the verb. And one of the worst things that we do is keep parenting our children. Jill and I were talking just last night, about a married couple, young married couple. They've been married about 4 or 5 years. I did their wedding. And she was just talking to their mother recently, and the husband talks to his mom 4 times a day. The husband does. And his mom canceled a family vacation they all were going to take with her family. For the craziest reason, I can't give you the reason, but I could, but I'm not. Craziest reason. In other words, she's still pulling this guy's chain. And he's about 29. We need to have a legacy that's gonna outlive us. And we all want our kids. We all want our kids to succeed. We all want our kids to follow the Lord. But that's a given. That's a given. We all want that. I'm talking about us as a married couple. What do we want to be able to look back on and see something that happened as a result of us living? And it's got something to do with this story, all right? So, how can we give the Spirit a hand? Cooperating with God, all right? Well, one thing, and we're going to talk about time here, all right? There's nothing that will create space for the Spirit in your life like you creating space in your calendar for each other. If you want to give the Spirit a chance to do some things in your life, create some space where He's got some opportunities. So, let me give you some practical ideas, all right? One of them is to resurrect your dating life. Resurrect your dating life. Unfortunately, for a lot of men, dating is like hunting. They go places that are really uncomfortable. They wear clothes that they don't really like. They eat food that they're not real fond of, watch movies that they don't like. But then when they bag it, they kind of mount it on the wall and get on with their life. It's like if you tell someone you have a date, they'll say, aren't you married? Say, yeah. All right? But resurrect your dating life. You can do this. Whether if you're married with tiny kids, then figure out a way, even once every couple of weeks where the kids are in bed, light a candle. I don't know in a group like this, get a bottle of wine, or if you don't drink wine, then get a bottle of grape juice. Do something. But have a special time together, all right? Let me give you some suggestions on it. Regular. Try to do it regularly. Build your calendar around it rather than vice versa. When you're filling in the calendar with all the other stuff, have a night. Talk about it. And the night you have a date, when you get done, schedule the next one. When we were living in Colorado Springs, Jill and I had 4 kids under the age of 5. We had no family around. I mean, our closest family was 700 miles away. Jill did 3 months of bed rest, pregnant with the girls. Ben was 5 and Jeff was 2.5. And we didn't have 2 sticks to rub together, all right? But as the kids got older, we had a set of twins that came to our house every single Wednesday. They just drove in at 4 o'clock. We paid more money for babysitting. We had no money left for food. So we'd go out someplace and have a Danish or a cup of coffee. But we got out of the house. We spent time together, right? We had a thing called tea time when the kids were real young, that they could not come into the kitchen for 30 minutes after we dismissed them from the table. And Jill and I just sat and talked, right? We had one son, who shall forever remain unnamed, that used to always come right to the edge of the kitchen and just stand there. So he wasn't in the kitchen. Our rule was, if you're not swelling, bleeding, or dead, then don't come and see us. We actually had to lock the girls in their bedroom during that time because DHR can't come and get me now. But we used to lock them in there so we had some time by ourselves. But set up a regular time. I don't care what it looks like, but make it regular. This seems like a small thing. This seems like something you do when you're in high school, all right? But this is the very thing we're talking about. This is a statement of honor. This is that I'd rather be with you than be someplace else. I'd rather be with you than on the couch. I'd rather be with you than, at the hunting club or whatever, all right? Solo. What do I mean by that? No double dates as substitutes. We moved here from Colorado, grew up in the upper Midwest, knew nothing of Southern gentility. So I didn't know anything about manners and all that sort of stuff. So when we first moved here, we were on a date, and another couple came up to us, and they said, "Hi, do you mind if we join you?" And I said, "Yeah." And they looked at me, and I said, "This is really a special time." I said, "We can talk some other time, but I really want to be with my wife." So no double dates as substitutes. You can go on double dates, but do this alone. Do this alone. Safe places. Find a place that's unfrequented by your friends so you're not going to get interrupted. Jill and I eat down in 5 Points because Christians don't go there because it's too dangerous. So we don't ever run into anybody. Just a whole bunch of inked up servers and a lot of very interesting people, but we don't ever get interrupted. So it's a safe place. You can go down there. If you go to the Mellow Mushroom in 5 Points, I promise you won't see any Christians there. And if you get a lot of those folks are your friends, all right? Fenced dates. Agree on conversational boundaries. There's some stuff you just don't need to talk about. If you both happen to be employed by the same company or in the same line of work or something like that, then leave business off the table. Jeff doesn't know this, or probably doesn't know this, but when Jill and I would go to North Carolina, we had an agreement that when we left the Georgia border, that we never talked about our children. We just quit talking about them. All right? And that's because we love them and care about them. So, because I knew that we crossed back over, it would all be there waiting for us. So there's certain things that you just need to leave off the table. I mean, if there's an urgency, if there's a crisis, for goodness sakes, yes. But have a life outside of work and children and church and all that sort of stuff, all right? Cellless. Leave it off the table. Leave it in the car. Leave it at home. Just don't bring your cell phone and put it on the table. Matter of fact, I have a podcast channel. You're welcome to listen to all you want to, but there's one podcast on there called Cigars, Cell Phones, and Civility that would be worth listening to. It's just what happens when we go someplace and this is sitting on the table. This is an unspoken signal that I am available to any virtual person other than you who are physical and happen to be right in front of me at any given time. Now, if you're a physician, then put it in your pocket and let it vibrate. But just be all there wherever you are. All right? And so when you go someplace, it breaks our hearts when we go out and see people, especially people our age, that are out to eat and they're both on their devices the entire time. The entire time. Don't do that. And this is not the devil's spawn, but it certainly does not need to be a substitute for spending time together. Just figure out a time. It's 30 minutes, coffee, whatever it is, all right? Another thing, keeping your knees on the same floor will keep your hearts on the same page. Integrate your praying life. What do I mean by that? Don't add new times to pray. Figure out more time to pray. Figure out times to pray in the midst of stuff you're already doing, all right? Pray about stuff that you're already engaged with. Ask for prayer. Ask for prayer from each other. Before you leave, before you walk out the house, before you go to bed, sometime, call in the middle of the day. Call, text. Please pray for me. I'm having a terrible time at work today. Got a difficult situation I'll talk to you about when I get home. Whatever. Pray for me. Pray for me. Make it part of the narrative. Make it part of the narrative of your life. Ask for prayer for people in each other's lives. You know, the world we live in, it's very difficult to have a single income. It's possible, but there's a lot of sacrifice that goes with it for folks that don't have one high income earner, all right? But the danger with two income families is the polarization of your worlds, where you've got a whole group of people over here, they've got a whole group of people over here, and they don't know each other, and you don't share those people with each other. But you should know the names of the key people in the life of your spouse or your partner. You should know who they are. Maybe 2 or 3 people, but you should know. And be praying for people in each other's lives, all right? Third thing, open and close each day with prayer. That's doable. I mean, you may be horizontal and it may last 45 seconds, but open and close each day with prayer. Do what you will with this, but I think the last thing that should be on your mind when you go to bed at night is the news. I'm sorry. I just think if you go to bed with some thought about the story and about the Lord and about your marriage, the news will not only be there in the morning, it will probably be different in the morning. So just think of what you go to bed with, and prayer is a great way to do it. Pray about things you've not prayed about before. And I don't know what those are for you. It could be silly things. It could be significant things. You may need to ask your spouse to pray for you about your prayer life, because you stink at it. I do. I stood up in front of my whole church and told him that. I said, I stink at prayer. I can do this all day long. Praying, man, it's hard. All right? Pray at times you've not prayed before. What would that be? Well, there's a bunch of them. Pray before you have sex, all right? If you're married, okay? If you're married. Pray before you have sex. Pray after you have sex. He's there. He's in the room. He invented this thing, for crying out loud. Bring God into life. Into life. Talk to him, all right? Third thing, and this is a big one. We've talked a little bit about this, but the Bible says that the power of life and death are in the tongue, all right? And this is true in our marriages probably more than any other place on the planet. Our words shape people. Our words shape others. Our words shape and affect our spouses. And I think we need to sanctify. We need to kind of make holy. We need to purify. We need to bring shalom into our talking life. Talk about your talking habits. Have at least one conversation as a result of this conference about the way you talk to each other. And I'm going to give you ample opportunity to do that in the material that's at the end of your notebook. We'll talk about that at the very end. But just have a conversation. What do I say to you that most encourages you? What do I say to you that least encourages you? Is there any particular way that I talk to you that's encouraging, that's discouraging, that's dishonoring, that sort of thing? Pray about your talking habits. If I've got a little wooden box in the chair where I have my devotions, and it's full of all these little verse cards that I've memorized for a long, long time. And one time I thought, you know what? I'm going to take out all the verses that deal with the tongue that I've memorized over the years and just work on those for a while. It was really depressing. It was a stack about this high. There's 1 billion of them, you know? So I decided, I did that for a while, but then I decided I'm just going to put one verse in this little pack I carry with verse pack in, that I'm going to review. Whenever I review verses, I'm going to hit this one first. And it says, set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth. Keep watch over the doors of my lips. And so that becomes my prayer every day. So you could memorize or advertise. By advertise, I mean put it someplace where you're going to see it. But memorize or advertise some talking verses. You can do it together. Put it on the refrigerator. Put it in the bathroom window or the bathroom mirror. Put it someplace where you'll be reminded of it. That may seem juvenile, but it really helps. It really helps. And for those of you that are real tech savvy, put a notification on your phone to pop up 3 times a day. Maybe remind yourself to pray for your spouse. Remind yourself to evaluate your speech. There is, and if you just take the book of Proverbs, do this. Take the book of Proverbs. There's 31 chapters in the book of Proverbs. There's roughly 31 days in most months. Read a chapter every day. 1 chapter, you can do that. And maybe write down the verses you see on the tongue. All right? Have a good-sized notebook. And just do it. Just write them down. This is such a vital thing, beloved, how we speak. Our mouth is what we create the ambiance of our homes with. We create our ambiance with our mouth. Okay, now this is kind of the end of the content, and in a sense, the end of our time together. And what I want to do is just extend an invitation to you guys to kind of wade into some deeper waters. All right, that's kind of the very next thing. And we're going to talk about continuing this journey. And this has to do with the resource called Tightening the Knot or Loosening the Noose that Hans or Her has made available. In your case, it's in the back of your conference notebooks, right? And I had mentioned this earlier, but the greatest challenge, honestly, the greatest challenge facing anyone at any conference, particularly a marriage conference, is simply keeping this conversation alive. That's the biggest challenge we face. We are an event-based culture. We are an event-based culture. And event-based cultures go to events and then they go to the next event. I did a quick search of the marriage conferences in the state of Alabama that are going on right now. And it's interesting how many churches have what they call an annual marriage conference. Is that a good thing? I think churches should always be helping nurture marriages. The danger of an annual marriage conference is that you go to, Lighting the Fire 2019, then you go to Lighting the Fire 2020, and you go to Lighting the Fire 2021, and you have this illusion that you're moving someplace and you're maybe not going anywhere. So conferences are impotent when it comes to making things happen. I'm a fairly decent teacher. I know that. I've been doing it for 40 years, and people have told me that. But I'm not magic. If anything's going to come, honestly, it's going to come from you embracing this material and going through it. I'm going to give you just a real quick snippet on how we go through it, what it is. But this idea of tightening the knot or loosening the noose is kind of a beginning. And I just want to show you kind of how this thing works. But one of the first things, if you look through, you don't need to go in the back and look at it, but there's a section in there from time to time that is called Recalling the Recent Voices. And that just goes back to specific pages in this notebook. Just makes reference to things that I said that you wrote down, all right? Then sometimes it has a section called Heeding the Ancient Voices. And what is that? That's just kind of a real brief Bible study, 2 or 3 verses at the most that you kind of spend some time in looking at. And then there's a section called Walking in the Spirit. That's personal application. In other words, what can I do today as a result of what I just looked at in these first 2 things? There's a section called Nurturing Intimacy, and these questions differ depending on where you are in the relationship. And I'm going to tell you flat out, this is good material. Jill and I wrote this a few years ago because we were seeing that the Knot or Noose Conference didn't have any traction, wasn't changing anyone's lives, and came this close to just quit doing it. And we decided, well, how about if we help the couples keep this thing going? And so that's where this came from. So these nurturing intimacy questions are really pretty decent questions that will take you into each other's lives and into each other's hearts. It's not like a lot of small group stuff that's kind of more superficial or kind of funsy. This is very, very real. And then there's one section called Renewing the Mind, and that's totally optional, but there's a verse or two if you wanted to memorize some scripture relating to that particular thing. And the material's based on themes, all right? And here's kind of how it works. Here's how it works. It's a 10-week commitment, that involves 3 days out of 7, your pick, any 3 you want, of personal devotions for 10 weeks. And the material's there. So you would spend 10 or 15 minutes, maybe 20 at the absolute most, 3 days a week, just by yourself, alone. This is private, not with your spouse, okay? And then 1 date or meeting per week. If you're single, you can do this as a group. I had 4 guys at Vanderbilt that went through this. Single guys went through this material by themselves. You can do it in a small group. You can do it as a couple. Couples are a great way to do it. It's hard to keep the traction, though, because if one person decides they don't want to, the whole thing falls apart. If you have 2 couples or 3 couples together, there's a little bit more peer pressure to kind of keep it alive, keep it going. And then about 20 to 30 minutes of just talking using the notebooks. So what would it mean? It would mean you would have devotions 3 days out of a week. You'd get together with your spouse either at home, have a date when the kids are to bed, or you'd go out someplace. You bring your notebook with you, and you'd spend 20 or 30 minutes just talking through what each of you kind of got out of those 3 days. And it's not shake and bake, but it's pretty close to, a lot of the heavy lifting's already been done, okay? So what happens? What's the harvest out of this? I mean, and this is the very, very end of the very end as far as where we are, all right? The knot will be tightened, be strengthened, you'll be drawn closer together, all right? You'll be drawn closer together. This notion of restriction, if you've been following through this whole thing about the narrative, is going to be loosened, all right? Your marriage will genuinely become more sacred. It will become more set apart. It will have a purpose that's bigger than you and older than you, all right? The story, God's story, is going to move forward, and you're going to have a role to play in it. I believe you will be transformed. I believe you will be less like Adam and more like Yeshua, more like Jesus. And I think the Lord will be glorified because this is his point all along. This is what he wants, has wanted all along, okay?